to Macduff Marine Aquarium's first ever podcast, and I am Marie Dare, the learning officer. I'm here with
Chris, I'm the displays officer.
And Frazer, I'm the aquarist.
And today we're going to be talking about how we acquire some fish at the aquarium. So we've recently done a few fish collections, so we're just going to have a chat about how we go about doing that. So Frazer, do you want to start us off by talking about your trip recently?
Yes, I suppose I can. So my trip was a trip to the Otter Ferry sea fish company, who specialise in halibut and
Somewhere
lumpsuckers.
In the deepest, darkest west coast of Scotland.
Yes, it was basically off Loch Fyne, I think it is.
Yeah.
Lovely part of the world. Being a 5-6 hour drive in a van that was limited to 62 miles an hour, struggling through the country highlands, it was quite fun. So filled up the van, and usual scenario is we kit it out with a massive sort of insulated box, which is what we use to put the water in to transport fish in, so that's keeps it cool. We fit air lines, air stones, and then we have an O2 kit on hand, and that allows us to then oxygenate the water and keep it fresh during transit. So that all gets done prior to leaving, and then I just drove there. So it was a pleasant drive, lovely weather, which was great. I stopped overnight in a hotel because obviously I'm not going to do a 12-hour round trip
in one day.
Be
a bit much, yeah.
So and then next day, following morning, I got up, hours drive from my hotel to Otter Ferry itself, and went and selected a load of lumpsuckers and halibuts for us. So
Did you actually get a selection in the end?
Yeah.
Oh, you're allowed to choose your own?
I actually got to
it's
choose.
like pick and mix lumpsuckers.
Well, the lumpsuckers not so much pick and mix. They had about 30, I think, adult lumpsuckers, most of which were still tagged, which meant that they were still being used for breeding or for other things. But I had about 20 or so that I could pick from, so I let the guy say, right, I want 6 of each, and he divvied up, and if I didn't want it I could send it back. So we had a little sort of man running back and forth between me and him, shuttling lumpsuckers out of their facility. It was quite amusing.
So why were they finished with these lumpsuckers in particular?
Well, they use them as broodstock, so they only last about 2 or 3 years in their breeding season or program, and then they get to a point where they're too big, they've got more coming up that they've been growing on, and it just allows them to refresh batches. Okay. So they literally shove food in them. So the guy was saying that the ones we've got are actually 3 years old. Now we've got lumpsuckers in the aquarium that are about a third the size, which are 3 years old.
Wow.
So they physically stuff them. So after about 3 years they're not getting as much out. So then they just do it with another load and take a new batch of breeding stock.
Okay.
And go again. So we got their offcasts.
And lumpsuckers are used on the fish farming industry, aren't they? Which is why they're bred.
Yes. Yeah. So they breed them, and when they're about the size of a small sort of tennis ball, that's when they go out to the cages and fish farms. So they're actually really tiny.
And they eat all the parasites, don't they? Yeah. The salmon parasites.
Yeah.
And try and keep the salmon as clean as possible.
Yeah.
So it's like a natural form of
parasite
control.
They're actually better than wrasse. Wrasse is another one that gets used often, but they're better than wrasse because
it was several years ago that we actually gave wrasse eggs to one of the local farms. That our wrasse here in the tank had laid eggs, and we actually gave them away to a farm, and they
did they work?
Bred them on. I'm not entirely sure. I don't got the feedback from that, but so that they were interested in the eggs. But yeah, they seem to have drifted away from that to lumpfish.
How long have we had the lumpsuckers now? A couple of weeks?
They're approaching their 3rd week, so it'll be 3 weeks on Wednesday since I brought them back. And they're feeding, they're seemingly swimming around happily. So 2 of the females laid eggs.
Oh wow.
They were pretty robust looking when they arrived. So they're massive.
So they'll be going into the camp.
Yeah, another week or so in quarantine, and we'll put them out.
So I've got some food that I want to try them on. So this is something before we obviously throw them into the tanks. We need to make sure that they're feeding on appropriately sized food. Mm-hmm. There's no point throwing them in the kelp tank if they're eating krill.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that they're eating chunks of fish and squid.
So have they adjusted from a parasite-based diet to...
Well, they weren't on parasites. These guys were actually feeding on what they call sausage stick, which is...
sounds so nutritious.
Well, it's not sausage.
I was going to say, it's not sausage. It's just a stick of ground up stuff. It's essentially
fish
pellet.
Meal.
Yeah, it's essentially pellet food, but it's been made into a sausage. So they call it sausage sticks. And they just dice it up into chunks and feed that to them. So that's what they were on, and they were getting that like 3 times a day. Wow. So we've gone down to 3 times a week with them, bless them. With the halibut, going back to your question on do I get a pick and mix, 20 odd thousand halibut were being raised in their farm at the time, so I got the choice of 20,000 halibut to pick through.
Judging by the fact that we've had a halibut on site for years, it's called Jemima, that is about 1.5 meters or so in length. 20,000 of those would probably swamp us out, so I'm quite glad you only came back with a few.
Well, we were looking for, they were all about the same size, about 100 grams or 6 inches in length, but it was trying to find ones that obviously were in good condition for display, because they don't care about one eye being wonky or a fin being slightly nibbled, because they're not growing them for presentation.
Yeah, they're just food.
So there were a lot that still had one eye missing. There were some that were actually eyes were on both sides of the head, which obviously for flatfish is not the case. They're on one side. So the eye hadn't shifted, which was completely bizarre to see. A flatfish that was not flat. It was freaky. Which was a shame, because they were all albino ones. So I was hoping to get at least one albino out of them. But from the ones that we managed to find, it wasn't the case.
Oh wow.
So I picked up a load and selected my best 10 and off I drove. And you have to stop every now and then to get air back into the system and make sure that they're all surviving and alive, and they were all just sort of wedged on the floor, so thankfully lumps like a stick, so they were all just sat on the bottom and everybody was just sort of sloshing around. So 7.5 hours later I got home.
Great. And they shall be in the tank soon, hopefully, so that's great.
Can't wait.